What's going on, guys? It is the Zoomer Value Investor here to talk to you guys today about 2 tips that are real quick, real easy to implement into your life that you maybe haven't thought about before or have gotten before from any kind of stock market YouTube. These are really 2 tips that are here to improve your life as an investor that you really wouldn't think ordinarily that you would look for. Normally when you go to YouTube and you type in like tips for investors, it's normally telling you something just arbitrary. And even I do that too, right? I'm out here espousing things like price to book, price to earnings, tangible book value, like you name it, all these vague metrics, right? That yes, do mean something, but again, it's in all stock market seriousness is very vague, right? Ladies and gentlemen, here are the 2 actionable pieces of advice that will improve your investing life in the long term. Number 1, reading. So reading is actually very important for investors. Reading is actually the backbone of Warren Buffett's philosophy. If you did not know, Warren Buffett actually spends the majority of his time as the Berkshire Hathaway chairman, in charge, of course, of the multi-hundred billion dollar, nearly $1 trillion conglomerate. He honestly spends most of his day reading what are called 10Ks of companies. Now, these are likely either companies that he and the Berkshire Hathaway conglomerate either own, or these are companies that he's probably looking to purchase. But he's reading the publicly listed 10K documents of these companies that are published for anyone to go out there and read if they so choose. Of course, these are hefty financial documents, full of hefty financial jargon, which vast majority of investors choose not to read. However, what's really important about reading is the kind of temperament it builds in yourself, it's almost like a meditative activity. In a world of very, very high stimulus, such as today with things such as internet, a lot of tech companies competing for your attention, a lot of neon colors being advertised in the night and things of that nature. There's a lot of things competing for your attention in today's society. However, reading is a much lower stimulus activity, and it kind of builds that kind of temperament that you do need as a long-term investor in volatile markets, and if you are a person who seeks to profit off of volatility in the long term. Again, being an investor with high temperament who sees through a lot of the psychology tricks that a lot of the stock market, a lot of the gullible people in the stock market tend to fall for. Being an investor who sees through all that stuff and is able to outperform, a lot of that begins with doing things that a lot of people all around you aren't doing, and one of those is reading. I personally believe that, especially in my generation, me speaking as the Zoomer Value Investor here, I've noticed a significant drop off in just the average person's bookshelf or their willingness to read or their library of books that they have read and can speak about. And it's a little bit scary to see, honestly. And I personally do believe it's because of what I said prior. A lot of that has to do with like the stimulus problem I've been kind of noticing in society. People seem to be affected by a lot of the higher stimulus that's going out here with, improved technology, improved media, etc. And it seems to be kind of like shortening attention spans. Advertisements seem a lot snappier than they used to be. And I think if you build your temperament as a person who's willing to read and who's willing to do low stimulus activities such as meditation, reading, I do believe they do go hand in hand, but they are actually honestly very similar when you think about it. When you're willing to indulge in these activities that are purposefully lower stimulus as opposed to alternatives in the modern society that you could choose that are high stimulus, such as playing an extra hour of video games or going out drinking, doom scrolling through a news site, a modern news site, like all of these like higher stimulus activities. It's just when you are purposefully seeking out the lower stimulus activity, you're just going to build a different temperament within yourself, and you'll start to notice certain things in the markets don't affect you so much, such as like a FUD news article came out that the old you maybe would have sold the news on that one and just been like, oh, just get me out. I don't like the news they were saying. They were saying there was like a fire at the factory, or this one company that makes up a decent amount of the revenues, they're gonna like bail on the company, or there was an article about that this competitor's technology is gonna come out within a year and it's gonna like change everything, and that just sounds really scary, so just get me out of the stock. The old you maybe would have sold on just, a big highlighted article, just like spamming that right in front of you, high stimulus, right? But the new you who's maybe thinking a little bit more with that Warren Buffett type philosophy, they're probably going to read into a lot of different things before they make that decision, and they're not going to be rushing to that decision that same day. So of course the 3 books I really like to advertise here on this channel, and I would recommend you do read them in this order to just kind of start to set yourself apart as an investor, especially if you are in like maybe the millennial or Zoomer generation, or I believe it's Generation Alpha is maybe the one that's younger than me, the Zoomer. You're going to want to read these 3 books. Now, the first one I would start with would be Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. This is it's less than 200 pages, really easy to digest, and I think it gives a very good rundown on the psychology and the mechanisms that psychology plays and preys upon people in the modern stock market, and has done of course in the historical stock market as well, but is more and more important now today in a stock market that is based on a lot of AI and algorithmic and hedge fund trading. Number 2, you're gonna wanna read Peter Lynch's One Up Wall Street. Now, I think this is a great book, not only about a historical, of course, context on the stock market that's very much relevant today, but it's very important for portfolio management. And of course, this is the kind of style I built my portfolio in personally here on my YouTube channel. And my personal portfolios, I use this type of Peter Lynch style of knowing what I own, not owning too many stocks, owning a very concrete, diverse but not too diverse pool of stock, and of course it's served very well here. The YouTube portfolio is performing very well, looking at about a 20% return from last April to this April. Of course, last April was the inception, and I'm very proud of this because when you compare it to the benchmark, the benchmark market of the S&P 500 hasn't done a ton the past year, so very impressive to get very close to a 20% return here in the YouTube portfolio. I do owe a lot of that, of course, to me and my time reading this book that Peter Lynch took his time to write and put out there for anyone who's willing to take the time to read it. And of course, there are audiobook versions of this. I will want to say One Up Wall Street, I believe, is on Spotify for free as an audiobook. I don't know how long that is going to last, but yeah, for sure, audiobooks are a decent way to digest information. I don't believe it is as focused or meditative as direct reading itself. However, you are getting that information stimulus of reading, which is a benefit, I do believe. And the one drawback I would say is that normally when people are doing an audio-based activity, they are doing something else, multitasking, and that tends to take away maybe from the actual, of course, as I was saying before, the attention that you are willing to give the product. So, for example, you might be listening to an audiobook. I personally might do an audiobook while I'm driving, or I'm in the gym or something of that nature, even doing some tech work at my job. So it just depends, right? But I think One Up Wall Street's one I'd really recommend that you actually take the time to read. I think it is that important. The last one, this is more of a value investing mecca here, is The Intelligent Investor by Ben Graham. Ben Graham is the mentor of Warren Buffett. I think this is a really important book to read here if you want to get into the value investing philosophy and start to kind of train your mind as a value investor. Another quick tip too, don't feel like you have to pigeonhole yourself into reading one book at a time, because you might get into a daily mood where it's you just don't feel like reading about this subject of this specific book that you chose to read that day. What I like to do is I like to juggle books. If I'm reading about 20 minutes a day, I might be I kind of want to read about technology today, or I might want to read about business today, or I might want to read about science today. So that's how normally I like to do it. I'm going to show you guys my current stack that I'm juggling right here, right now. This is Value Investing. This is by professors of value investing at Columbia, Bruce Greenwald, Jude Kahn. What I really love about this book so far is they talk about a lot of the academia based things so far in the book. I've only read the beginning part of the book so far, but what I really like about it so far is they talk about a lot of the academia supporting theses behind value investing and why it kind of is track record proven by academia to be a valid way to invest, to outperform. Of course, I did flip through this book before buying it, and one thing I did really notice that really did stupor me into wanting to purchase it was it talks about some of the Warren Buffett, Berkshire Hathaway letters are discussed in this book, and they're reviewed. What I really like about this book is it was recently updated around 2020 into the second version. The first version came out in the year 2000. It was a very momentous time for a book like this to come out. the reason why that was around the peak of the tech and telecom bubble, the year 2000. Of course, you have things like the Y2K event that was hyped up and things of that nature. Definitely a crazy time, but around like 2002, 2003, that was really when it was very obvious to a lot of investors that value was going to be outperforming. And the tech and telecom bubble days of greed and sending tech stocks to the moon were over at that time. And, the second edition of this book came out in around like 2020, 2021, as I was saying. Kind of where like you saw something similar, of course, right? Where you see things like Cathie Wood of ARK and things of that nature. She was vastly outperforming Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway since inception, and then all of a sudden Berkshire Hathaway and Cathie Wood, they're more neck and neck, I think, with Berkshire having the edge again. So I think that's really what's interested me in this book. Also the timing of the releases of the editions, but really enjoyed the content on this one so far. Really would recommend my subscribers check this one out. This is more my tech pick that I've been having juggling around in my stack. The Age of AI, Henry Kissinger, Eric Schmidt. Eric Schmidt, he is the ex-Google CEO, and I have enjoyed this one so far. I just read the beginning part, of course, and they've given a very background discussion on why AI has come to the way it has been, how it's kind of been like a Machiavellian pursuit. I think it's been really interesting. Definitely gonna read this one to the end. I think this is also probably a very digestible read. This one's about like 250 pages, so yeah, makes a lot of sense why I would read a book like this when you're considering, how Google is a staple in my portfolio and how, that company is going to play based off the tailwinds of AI for the next decade or two. Same thing when you think about like a company like AppCellera that I own, the AI drug discovery company that I talk about a lot here at this channel. So really interesting book, of course. And this is more of like a sciencey book. This is Codebreaker. This is about genomics, gene editing. Talks about Jennifer Doudna. This is by science journalist Walter Isaacson. He gave a background science journalist novel on Leonardo da Vinci and Steve Jobs that were bestsellers. And this one's a lot more about like gene editing itself and Jennifer Doudna. Unfortunately, towards the beginning part, a lot of this is kind of talked about stuff I kind of more or less have already known. I of course didn't know the stuff about Jennifer Doudna, but a lot of the science they've talked about up until this point, I have known. I did flip through the latter part of the book, and that was more looking to the stuff I'm like looking to learn. So I'm really excited to get into that part of the book for sure. But so far they've only talked up to the point about like things like Watson and Crick, origins of DNA, of course, things that I learned in like university and things of that nature. So still, of course, really interesting read, really enjoying this one. Gonna see this one out to the end. A lot of these books are more like textbook reads, none of this stuff is like Harry Potter or any kind of like, sci-fi novel or super enjoyable novel or anything like that. I don't really read a lot of fiction or anything of nature. Normally when I do read, it is something more textbook-like. But that's how I prefer to do it. I prefer it more as like a disciplined activity. I do believe that there are probably benefits in reading fiction. As I said again, the goal is to indulge yourself in a lower stimulus activity and see if it improves your temperament. Getting a library card is a great way to get books for free. However, you are going to be on kind of like a maybe time window where you can't renew the book, maybe like a 3-week window where you're going to have to read the book and return it. I think that's really great. It saved me a bit of money. I read a lot of my books through library cards, but I think books are just great value in general. For example, like I paid maybe like $15-18 for this book, and probably gonna take me maybe like several hours to get through, of course, right? And of course, that's a book I own. It's gonna be on my bookshelf forever. I could really take notes in it or put sticky notes in it if I really wanted to. It's my book. The next actionable bit of advice I really want to talk about that I believe will really improve your life as an investor if you're not already implementing it is going to be exercise. The reason why exercise is so important is because you're going to get an endorphin release after you experience exercise, after you're implementing it in your life. You're going to kind of like live with that higher level of baseline endorphin. And what that's going to do is, because you have more endorphins in your system and things of that nature, you're going to have like a lower level of generalized cortisol, the kind of like stress hormone, the kind of like panicky hormone in your body. And of course, as I was saying, as things like bad news happens in the stock market and things of that nature, as Peter Lynch always says, you're going to want to have a stomach for things like that, right? And if your stomach isn't working properly, and one of the things that can really perturb that is cortisol. If your figurative like stock market stomach isn't like functioning well and the cortisol is just like disrupting it a ton, it's just not a good situation to be in, right? So exploring exercise, that's going to get you living to probably a lower level of baseline cortisol. Of course, if you already have an exercise routine, maybe of course you could improve upon it, or of course just continue it, and that's just like a good thing to just continue doing. And I'm just giving you like good reasons to of course continue that endeavor. But that's going to make you a lot more resilient to bad news, and it's also not only that, it's going to extend your life. And of course, if you know anything about investing, if you live a long time, you're just going to have more and more money. So if you're someone like Warren Buffett's situation where you're in your like mid 90s, you still have pretty much all of your brain sentience to make like decent decisions and whatnot. I mean, how could you not have more money? You just have been in the markets longer. And I hear Warren Buffett get a lot of flack about like the dude eats McDonald's every day, the dude sips on Cokes every day. And it's like, dang man, like I do that too, bro, like chill out. But yeah, no, for sure. It makes sense, And I don't do that every day, but I do it a lot. It is one of my guilty pleasures, of course, things like Coca-Cola and a good chicken sandwich from McDonald's. I would prefer something like Cane's or Chick-fil-A, but that's neither here nor there. But you know, the dude Warren Buffett, I mean, even he has exercise routine. So that just goes to show you, like, if the best of the best is doing it, then it's just kind of like goes to show that it's something that you just kind of got to plan out and do. And you know, it could be a multitude of things, right? Of course, personally, I do a lot of weightlifting. That's what I really enjoy. Burn a ton of calories as you do it, and what you're going to do is you're going to develop like muscle mass as you do it more and more. And actually what's proven to be very good for, you know, longevity and long life is having particularly lean muscle mass. And what's good about lean muscle mass is you're going to be like less likely to have things like visceral fat, where, you know, fat, particularly visceral fat, is very dangerous because it starts building up in between your organs, starts making your body less efficient of a vehicle, and just less of an efficient, you know, temple for life, figuratively, right? So keeping lean muscle mass, that's a great way to extend longevity. And part of the way you do that is through weightlifting, because that is going to be the foundation for building muscle mass. Now, another great way to do exercise is through cardiovascular activity, or of course called cardio. And this is great for kind of more like that lean aspect of the lean muscle mass. Now, while both the activities of weightlifting and cardio do burn calories, particularly cardio is great for, you know, building like the health of the heart, the health of the lungs, the aerobic activity of the body. Now, what's great about both of these activities is both of these activities are going to have that same effect of your endorphins will go up as you are willing to indulge in them more, and then your cortisol will go down. Now, don't think of this as something like perfectly linear. Of course, if you're working out like 5 hours a day, like no rest day or something, you probably won't get like the benefits of this anymore, right? It's because it's doing too much of anything is like a poison. I think they're just saying out there or something like that, right? So we, of course, as modern investors in this new world, this world of higher stimulus, this world of lowered attention spans that we are in, of course, it's really important that we are not being continually bothered by that cortisol hormone, and that we certainly have that cortisol hormone situated in our life where it's a healthy response. Again, you know, healthy cortisol, healthy response to stressors. But if you're having too much cortisol over like too many little things, and that cortisol ends up creating you, stupering you into poor decision making, then that's essentially a huge issue. And I think if investors are running into issues like that as they kind of review some of their past trades, I think certainly incorporating an exercise routine, that's one of like the biggest, most helpful things I probably could just kind of throw out there, that's going to certainly like change up things going forward for you, yourself, and your future performance. And of course, not just investing, you know, livelihood, longevity, quality of life, your personal enjoyment of life. And of course, you know, that's going to tie in with investing. You're making better decisions. Of course, you're also living longer, accumulating more returns. Even if you're doing something like such as like business or entrepreneurship, you really see Mark Zuckerberg. He's had like a huge transformation with himself, his personal relationship with fitness. You kind of think of Mark Zuckerberg back when he started Facebook, even when he was like in university, kind of as like a nerdier guy, not really like involved at all in the physical fitness world. Just kind of like coding all day, wearing hoodies, like, you know, that's really the thing he does, right? And then you kind of like see him now, right? As he's grown and scaled up with Facebook / Meta, scaled up with the company, now multi-$100 billion company. He's had to change the way he does a lot of things. And now you see Mark Zuckerberg dressing differently. You see him doing a lot of fitness, doing MMA, kickboxing classes. And the reason why is because a strong body kind of is a strong mind. And I think Mark Zuckerberg himself, as the CEO and founder, he kind of realizes that, hey, I have to change up what I'm doing, kind of my schedule, make time for some of these activities, because I understand that if I partake in these activities such as my fitness, my MMA training, I'm just going to look at a lot of situations differently. I'm going to approach some of my things that I do day to day as CEO maybe a little more aggressively, with a little bit more passion. I'm going to have a little bit less cortisol kind of hindering my judgment or clouding, diluting my judgment. And of course, when you see someone like the Zuck kind of really start to implement these changes, even he himself in his life, as he becomes worth more and more money as the years go on, he himself, I think it really goes to show people like you or me who are maybe younger than the Zuck, really how important fitness is going to be for our lifetime approach to the markets and our careers. The last thing I really want to touch on is kind of like outside of both of these topics. It's really about this one YouTube video I watched where this person read about 40 investing books, several different investing books, and their kind of general thesis in going this activity was, hey, if I read this many books, surely I'm going to come out of the other side of this thing a whole different fine-tuned investing expert, knows next to everything there is to know about the stock market. And what I love about this is the conclusion that this YouTuber came to is that really when it comes to the stock market, there's only so much you really can essentially learn, because as we know from reading a book like Morgan House's Psychology of Money, the stock market is so inherently unpredictable, and you can't even say, oh, this time it's different, and not be taken as a joke or be taken completely seriously, because the markets are that unpredictable. This time it's different. Yeah, you could fall into that historical trap of history repeating itself, but history doesn't always repeat itself in the stock market. It's one of the most unpredictable mechanisms of any foundation of human society that is out there. But what this YouTuber did learn from reading all those different investing books was they came to a final conclusion of, really one of the best things I can do as an investor is live my personal best life possible. And I think this is really showcased in a Manish Pabrai interview that I've seen, where a university student asked Manish Pabrai kind of what his day-to-day is looking like, how hard he's working and things of that nature. And Manish Pabrai answered, to the surprise of these university students, that he's not working 18-hour days, 6-7 days a week, sleeping 6-hour days or anything of that nature. He's, taking it cool. He's doing, of course, a good amount of hours of reading every single day, but he's also making some finer decisions about, balancing out his life. So sometimes his evenings, he said, might look like something like, hey, right now I need to watch like a movie and just hang out with my wife and enjoy this movie. So ladies and gentlemen, as I wrap up this video, I just think it's really important to put out there that the stock market, it's not really at all healthy to obsess over the stock market. It is something, of course, you can build a lot more of a experience base, a lot more of a foundation on as you go on in life. However, one of the most important things you can do as an investor is take care of yourself, balance out your life, find a balance in your life. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching this video. I really do hope you enjoyed. Please leave a like or comment for my AI and algorithm overlords here at YouTube. Please leave a comment on your thoughts about these crazy modern markets we are in. I would love to hear your thoughts on the state of the markets. But with that being said, peace.